Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make Sloppy Joe pasta. So what you see on my counter is what we're going to use to make this, and it's going to be kind of a different take on making the Sloppy Joe part of this because we're going to make it from scratch. And what you see is what we're going to use to make everything in this whole deal, including the pasta, and there's going to be cheese in this. So what we're doing basically is making this totally from scratch for Sloppy Joe, adding some different takes on it because it's going to have some added beef broth to it and things like that to kind of punch the flavor. But then we're going to add pasta to it, and then we're going to add cheddar cheese, which you can have an option on your cheddar cheese if you want to use like mild, sharp, medium, whatever you want to use on that, that's perfectly fine. But when we mix this all together, it's going to have this amazing taste where it's going to remind you of eating a Sloppy Joe, but at the same time, we're going to have a really good punch of the cheese and the pasta and everything together to make this more of a pasta dish than a Sloppy Joe. So you're going to have a really great mix of stuff going on here, but in the end, it's going to have such a great flavor, and it's going to have like this really wonderful taste where you could have this for a complete meal for lunch, dinner, whatever. But also, all you really need to add with this is maybe some bread or something, and that way you've got all you need for a meal. And the good thing is there's enough here to serve several people, so you probably can serve like 6 people out of this thing completely. You've got it made, and that's just a wonderful thing to have that much to work with. So this is not hard to make. It really, if you just go step by step with me, it really will not be that bad. And I think that maybe, you might just learn to love this as much as I do because it has such amazing taste to it. So let's get started with this. We're going to go into our large skillet here. We're going to put it on medium-high heat, add in about a tablespoon or 2 of oil, so that way it'll cook our vegetables. And we're going to put in some pepper onion blend, which we're using about 3/4 of a cup here. So basically, it's 1/4 of a cup of onion, 1/4 of a cup of red pepper, and 1/4 of a cup of green pepper. That's all you need. So get it in there, mix it up, move it around, get it going, and we're going to cook this for just a couple of minutes. So for one, like mine came out of the freezer, so you just want to thaw it out a little bit to start it cooking. But then we're going to add in 1 pound of ground beef, and we're going to go ahead and cook these together for a while because the peppers and onions and everything mixed in with the ground beef is going to flavor the ground beef a bit as we're cooking it. But we're going to start cooking this. We want to get the ground beef totally browned out to make sure that it is totally cooked through, and then we're going to start adding some other ingredients. So we're going to add 1 tablespoon of minced garlic to this, and we're going to cook this for about an additional minute because we want to make sure that the garlic gets cooked in, but not for too long, because if you leave this in here over a minute, it's going to start to kind of like singe and burn, and it actually will have such a taste to it after it's burnt. You don't want it. So a minute is good, 30 seconds works too. We're just going to go ahead and cook this in. Now, at this point, once you've got the garlic cooked in, if you have a lot of oil in the bottom of your pan, a little bit of grease, whatever, you can go ahead and remove it before we do anything else because we really don't want that cooking into the rest of what we're doing. So when you get to this point, if you feel that there is too much grease in the bottom, you can go ahead and remove it, and just make sure that your ground beef is completely cooked through because we want to make sure that there is no pink in here, everything's cooked, your vegetables are cooked, and then we'll start moving on to the next spot. So we're going to add to this 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, and we're going to put this in and mix it through because we want to break this up into the ground beef as we're cooking, because if you move this around enough, it's going to start distributing throughout, and it's easier to do this rather than if you put something wet on top of it and you wouldn't be able to break it up as easily. So go ahead and move that through. We're going to add into this 1/4 of a cup of chili sauce. Now the chili sauce is going to give this a little bit of an edge and flavor because it's going to kind of have this sweet spicy taste to it, and that's something that's just going to help the flavor as we are mixing this up. So you're going to need 1/4 of a cup of chili sauce mixed in. So once you get this in here, we're going to go ahead and add other ingredients to this, of course, but we want to get this completely into it, and then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, and then we're going to add 1/3 of a cup of water. And once this is in, we're going to mix this through because we want to get everything blended together as we go along, because we don't want to just let it sit too long without mixing everything. So just make sure that you get this all completely in there. And then we're going to move on to some seasoning in just a second. And I have all my seasoning in one little bowl. So what I'm going to end up putting in is a half a teaspoon of salt, a fourth of a teaspoon of pepper, and a fourth of a teaspoon of pepper flakes. And then to this, we're adding 2 tablespoons of mustard. This mustard is going to give this a little bit of a kick because it's going to have a little bit of something to go up against the sweet that we've already put into this. And once we get this completely mixed in, we are going to add in 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. So, and this again helps anything. If you're cooking beef, Worcestershire just works with it for some reason. It just gives it that added extra edge. So like I said, about a tablespoon of that. And then we're going to add in a half a cup of either tomato sauce or ketchup, whichever you have available. You can substitute these. The tomato sauce is what I'm using, but you could use the ketchup. Like I said, it's a half a cup. We're going to mix this all together and let it cook for anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes. Because what we're trying to do is thicken this up a little bit as it's cooking, because we want to get everything to a point where it's thicker, because we're going to add liquid to this afterwards. And the liquid isn't so much for cooking what we already have in our pan, but it's going to help with cooking the pasta that's going in later. So like I said, 4 to 5 minutes, we want to actually get this simmering and doing its deal. One thing you want to do is occasionally stir this. You don't want it sitting in one place too long, and just totally let it do its thing. But once we get it to the point we're ready to go for this, you're going to need 2.5 cups of beef broth. Now, you have an option on this. If you don't want to use beef broth, but you want chicken broth, you can use it. It really doesn't make that big a difference in this and the flavor. The beef is just going to make it taste a little richer. If you want to use the chicken, it's totally up to you. You can just use either broth that you want to, but you're going to need 2.5 cups at this point. Now, I'm using beef broth in it. So once mine is really bubbly, I'm going to go ahead and put this back in here. We're going to have 2.5 cups, and then we're going to get ready to add pasta, which we are going to need 12 ounces of pasta, and I'm going to use penne. You don't have to. If you wanted to use like rigatoni or some kind of a pasta that's just whatever, you could probably even use something like an elbow macaroni if you wanted to. It's all in the choice of what you want to use, but I'm using penne, and I want to get this up to a bubble before I get, ready to put that in. I want to see some bubbles going on. I want to see this boiling. I want to see it doing something really hot before I put in the pasta, because once the pasta goes in, all 12 ounces of this, it's going to have to cook for 15 minutes, so that way the pasta is cooked through completely. Now, if you're using a smaller pasta, you might not need to leave it quite 15 minutes. You might be able to get away with like maybe 11-12 minutes on it, but get that in there, get it all mixed through, and then you wanted to put a lid on it or whatever just to let it do its thing and cook for the time it has. And then when we come back to this after the 15 minutes, you can see that it's really thickened up, because that pasta is going to absorb the water that you're putting into it, like the beef broth, the chicken broth, the liquid, whatever. It's just going to absorb it. So we want to reduce this down to a low heat. And then we want to bring in some cheese, and we're using 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese, which mine is mild. Now you could use mild, you could use sharp, you can use whatever you want in this, as whatever your preference is for the cheese. I like the mild in it, so that's what I'm using. So we're going to mix this completely through it. We want to get this cheese melted, so it's going to take a couple minutes to do that, but this is why you want it on a low heat. You don't want this getting to a point where you're going to scorch your cheese or anything like that. And just mix it through and let it sit for a few minutes until it has totally melted, and then you're ready to serve. And like I said before, you can serve this with bread or whatever you want to, but it's going to have such an amazing taste to it. And the best thing is, this is it. This is this easy to make. It's really not a hard process. Just stay on top of that cheese, and when it's done, it will look something like this. And this has such an amazing taste. I think you're going to like it. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.